Okay, so hello again, Promise. Thank you for being with us. Obviously, you are one of the participants at TIS 2022 pitch competition that we had with some other contestants, and you were basically the winner of it. And this is an opportunity for us to know more about you, your story, what you're doing, and also just to share many of the projects that many of the work you're doing in your project with the rest of the world. Obviously, potentially things may come up, new partnerships, new investors, and etc. People to really know how it goes. So I think my first question for you is if you can tell us basically the story of how you found out about the Tongston TIS pitch session, and also your application, your participation in it, and also how it all went, basically.
Yeah, thank you for having me again, and it's quite an honor to be here. I really feel privileged. So about the application processes, I think it was on an August, I think morning, rainy August morning, and I was just on Twitter, just going by my day, and I just bumped into promoted art, Tongston, so I just immediately Googled up some things, checked up on what they were about, and it was about a couple of days to the end. I think it was just I had about 24 hours to the end of the day, and then I just applied and got a mail to come pitch the idea. And what was quite fascinating was what I really learned all through that process, not just about the 2 minutes, because I mean 62 minutes was quite short to really put down everything in details. It was more of an elevator pitch, so I just really had to pick up snippets. So what was quite interesting and intriguing for me was the amount of persons I met via the Tongston Entrepreneurship scheme. I connected with quite a couple of them on LinkedIn and all of that. But the application process, yeah, it was what I was used to. So when I saw the business canvas, it was what I was used to. So we just had to go pull up resources from where we had them, and just it was just a copy and paste kind of thing, if I may. And yeah, so they're here right now, and I'm quite fortunate to have won. I feel really, really blessed.
Yeah, indeed. I remember how tough it was to squeeze everything, as you said, into 2 minutes of elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was enough for you to sell that idea really to us, and eventually got the prize compared to the other contestants. But speaking of idea, if you can tell us, because in terms of always say one should dare to think great and sell his ideas, can you tell us what was your process or your journey towards coming up the idea for Mijolnia, and also developing it to the level that you were able to pitch at the Tongston pitch session?
Yeah, so before Mijolnia, I'd done home zone. I'd equally done e-commerce field, and so I was looking for the next people say I'm looking for the next best thing. So I went into hibernation mode and started to dig deep. And what was it really that I wanted to do? So I really come from a place where there are a lot of industrialists who are quite surrounded. I'm quite surrounded by, and a lot of software geeks. So I just wanted to do something a little bit different in niche, but something really closer to what they were doing. But something really profound and changing. So I went into, I remember it was sometime in I think July 2019. So I started hibernating and thinking and ideating what I should do, what should the next big thing could really come from. So I looked at the MDG goals, the SDG goals, the United Nations SDG goals. Poverty was one of them, education was one of them, industrialization was equally one of them. And I looked at the first 5 goals. None of this could have been done without energy. So I said, okay, fine, where do we really focus our niche? Do we build from generation, or do we build from storage? So I said, we have a replete and abundance of generation systems. The sun itself is one big a heck of a generator. So I said, fine, why don't we just build something to harness that energy from the sun and just store it somewhere in a battery and then deploy it to users? And that was how the idea just woke up and came alive. And Woz and I have been transiting into that, filing a number of preliminary IP applications, and trying to see how we could get our hands on maybe one or two investors who could believe and lead us into this vision, because I mean it's quite capital intensive. It's one of the things that just gets us out of bed in the morning, and we can't really sleep when we have the idea burning. So it's something that is quite exciting for us, but also it's like a burden for us. We really can't sleep with the idea, so we just want to give it to someone. At some point we wanted to say, let's sell it to someone and just rest, because we can't rest. It's something that takes away sleep from our eyes, so all in all, that was how we really found the lock from the idea, going into the SDG goals.
Yes, indeed. I like that SDG part. It's one of the sub components of one of our core values in Tongston, actually. And if you look at just last week, COP27 was happening, where many global leaders and companies came to advocate that enterprises should build with the mind, also while being mindful of the SDGs, but also especially climate change and things like that. And it did also actually give you some advantage when you are pitching, because of that whole SDG, eco-friendly, renewable energy, sustainable energy, and all that. So it's very much commendable, actually. And I actually encourage others also that whatever business you are doing, whatever enterprise, be mindful of the social side of things, the environment side of things, and also sustainability basically as a whole. And if you can let me know, to what extent do you think your education, maybe right from primary, secondary, tertiary, and all that basically in the university, but also any work experiences and other things that you did, courses, or whatever it is that has really contributed to you setting up this idea and also building it to this level of participation, even at TIS?
Education wise and how it has contributed to the idea, and of course to the dream, it's quite immense, and profound in that sense, if I may. For education, I know that the kind of materials an environment, really, it's about the culture, it's about the environment you're exposed to, and little or nothing that has to do with what you take out of the classrooms. Because I mean, if it was just left for the classrooms, it's just 30% or 40% at most, so you can't really do anything with that. So education really has contributed a very good and sizable chunk. But other than that, personal development, and of course the community that we tend to belong to, has contributed immensely. Take, for instance, the computer engineering community that we belong to, and of course, several other labs that we equally subscribe to. In terms of experiences, in great detail, it has contributed a great and immensely. For instance, I had the opportunity to work with the University of Nigeria's Nano Research Lab, and I met a lot of minds there, nationally and internationally acclaimed, professors, and this contributed a large chunk to it. And my co-founder and I equally have worked in startups before now. Aaron is a typical example. Aaron is one of the leading solar PV manufacturers in Nigeria. We have links also with Green Age. We've equally worked with eScore, that is also a very big brand out there that is doing solar PVs as well. So all of these experiences has contributed in no small measure to giving us the idea of what solar PV in Nigeria and in Africa at large really can be. I mean, the market is growing. There are people, the consciousness is out there. It's not really rampant yet, but it's really out there. And the experiences that we've gathered from this personally is what I've learned from all of this is empathy. When you see people going through problems, as a product engineer, you should it just programs you to say, I mean, it's your fault that they're going through this problem. I mean, if you could actually think out something, I mean, it can be better for them. So I mean, if you cannot think out something, then it's your fault that you're going through this problem, and it just makes you feel a little sad. Yeah, the emotions are there. So they also learn people-oriented leadership, for example. So these are some of the experiences that we've come out from learning from all of these experiences. And in little details, it comes in handy one occasion or the other. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Two things I think from what you have said just right now, which is people, serving people. You know, like usually because of I've had experience being a teacher also, and whenever I was teaching the school, they always used to tell us that we should prepare the kids to be able to problem solve. And unfortunately, they don't tell us that the problems that we should be preparing the kids to solve are problems that people are facing, problems that organizations are facing, problems that governments are facing, you know. And that's actually where the secret sauce is. If you learn how to build your capacity to solve problems for others, you will be okay. You will never be unemployed, you will never be jobless, and you always have something to do, you know, because that is, you have a service to offer. And the other thing that you mentioned also with regards to having your experiences, even in UNN and also even in other jobs that you do, something that is very much advocated right now, especially in the past 10 years or so, is that education systems should connect to what industry are looking for. You know, there's no point in you graduating and learning whatever you're learning, but you don't know how to apply it in industry, you know, and this is where you see people are struggling even with unemployment and stuff like that. So I actually almost, if I can say 200% agree with everything that you've said right now, because I do relate to it and I see it happening also. My next question is in terms of what was the most challenging aspect of, as I said, thinking, creating and selling this idea of yours for the grant that Tongston offered?
One of the most challenging aspects really has always been, of course, I mean, you cannot underestimate the possibilities that funding brings. It really makes everything seamless. You cannot underestimate that. So one of the challenging parts has always been, the access to that pipeline, to that channel, because the talent is there, the resources are there, the community is there, the market is equally there. So the missing factor really has always been access to those channels. I mean, we've gotten to apply to quite a number of accelerator hubs, the likes of Techstars, the likes of Y Combinator, and of course in Nigeria, Microtraction and the likes, and these guys just can simply tell you, oh, you have to come down to Lagos, or, you have to come down to Abuja, and, the onboarding processes of shuttling between these cities is really not, it's really not a small feat, so this has always been the challenge, a mixture of the financing, of course, the early, easy soft landing capital to really ease certain burdens off your neck or your chest, if you like. And product market fit, I would say is the next best challenge, to find the right soft spot between building an engineering solution and finding the best pricing for it. But above all, what are the problems or challenges that cut across all of this is access to those funding.
I agree with you. At Tongston, we have, even before Tees, we had a few other startups that were pitching ideas to us, but unfortunately, it's almost like they're pitching the idea for the wrong reasons, or they haven't structured the idea well enough to get that initial seed funding that will move the idea forward to the point where they even get bigger investment and all that. And it's something that I think even for next year's event, for next year's Tees, I think we are committing more funds to the investment pool of the competition, but also we are trying to do a lot of orientation and sensitization to make sure that people actually do the right thing to structure the ideas well enough so that it doesn't become too difficult. Because really the money is there out there, and money doesn't stay stationary. It's looking for where to move into. But unfortunately, the entrepreneurs and the people with the ideas basically haven't put it to that level of attracting those funding. But it's a growing ecosystem, I think, especially for Africa, in the next few years, more and more of this funding and investment will keep coming in. Hopefully, or I guess just like how it's happening outside of the continent. So my next question, quickly, I think, as we said, so many ideas and also so many organizations that are willing to invest, but also, as you said, sometimes they ask you to come to their venues, and the process differs and varies, right? Some are difficult, some are very straightforward. So for you, what other platforms or avenues have you previously tried to pitch this idea? What kind of platforms? You may not, you don't have to say the names, but what kind of other platforms have you tried pitching this idea to? And also, how was the experience with them different from this one that you just had with Tongston?
Yeah, so we've been quite fortunate to pitch to quite a number of platforms across the country and of course internationally. And the difference, of course, is the grants, yeah, that Tongston gives, and the other platforms didn't really do that. In fact, so that's the major difference, the grants. I mean, some of the platforms have really given some kind of other kind of emoluments, not necessarily grants, but systems and softwares and packages like that, and of course they very come in handy. But across board, we've been able to pitch to quite a number of platforms, both nationally and internationally, in Europe and in America. And one of the challenge really has been traction. They just keep telling you, you don't have the right traction. We think you're too early. We think you need more time. So that's been the challenge for us. And you can only be too early if you don't have the funding to push that. So for us, really, it's been quite a rough ride that we are enjoying, by the way. And but then of course these are some of the platforms that we've been to but of course the challenge, I mean, the advantage has always been the funding, that we got from T's, and from other platforms, we didn't really get the necessary funding to push the idea yet.
Oh, okay. You haven't tried banks yet, right? Not yet.
Yeah. No. I mean, banks. We speculating that banks will really tell us to bring, we'll bring a CFO, bring all the whole lands in Nigeria. It can be very funny, but we've not tried banks yet.
Yeah,
but we can, in fact, try.
Yeah, when it reaches the right stage, I think in fact, you have so many of them looking for you, looking to give you their money. Hopefully, I hope this happens in the next few years. Because typically there are three avenues of funding. Of course, the grants, you can get grants, you can get loans, which leads to debt, right? Typically what banks give. But also you can get equity investment, which is like what venture capital and private equity firms do. But hopefully, as you said, the next stage is that you'd have to go and be almost like pleading for this money, but they are ready for this idea of yours in the next level. Yeah. Absolutely. So next question is basically in terms of, as we know, you have participated as part of you winning the grant. You participated in the Tongston Business Advisory Session. I think it was just 2 days ago, right? In the morning. So what were your critical, or what one or two or three, or even if it's one, your critical takeaway basically from the business advisory session as a business owner, basically as yourself?
I mean, I could write, a 15-page paper on what we took away, or more, in fact, starting to list them now would just be, to undermine the extent to which we learned from it. And it was really packed with a lot of knowledge, with new ideas we were fresh in on, and we were really, really fired to go. From starting with the, the leadership factor, where we had to really position and have some kind of structural arrangement on how decisions are made. We learned a lot on how that could be done, and of course on having to really work on our personal branding, and of course equally personal branding was one of those other lessons we took out of it, to getting to streamline our target markets more strategically, and sort of like make it more laser focused, in fact, and having a product specification for a certain market group and all of that, to issues like proper IP filing, and even looking to get more forex and building products for international as well, and looking to earn forex from that. It was quite interesting to really learn from all of that. I mean, it was really packed. I can't sit here and tell you how. I mean, if we sit here, we could exhaust all of the time, and then we're still not done with that, you know. So it was really quite. I mean, from you, the CEO, and from Ms. Fatima, it was quite, you know, it was quite. I mean, it's what people pay fortune for, and for us, we really were quite you know, it's what people will get to pay a lot of money for, and you know, we got it free of charge and still got a tip off of, you know, a grant, in fact, you know. So it's more like you're being paid for what you love doing, in fact, you know. So it's really very lovely, and in fact we're very excited about it.
Yeah, thank you. We had very limited time of just 2 hours for the session, but yeah, I hope maybe we learned more about it also, because at face value, you know, you never get to really know everything. And as you said, it was just 2 minutes of pitch the last time, and then also the pitch deck that you sent. But this gave us a bit more insight. In fact, it even gave us some work to do, because the night before we had to go and research all your competitors and everything that you put in your plan. So it was also quite enlightening, actually, and very much appreciated also. So next question, just 2 final questions, or 2 or 3 maybe, I think. For you, what is cutting edge? What do you think is cutting edge about your business regarding impact on your community, and especially in terms of value, influence, and profitability, whether for yourself or for the community?
So in terms of cutting edge, I mean, the value that our innovation.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
So in terms of the value, the influence, and of course the profitability, innovation really is the bane of existence. You know, I mean, starting from the Neanderthals, where tools like hoes were used to till the ground. That was an innovation, you know, in fact. And right now, we don't need tools like hoes to till the ground anymore. We need devices and machines and giant earth movers. So for us, in fact, the value that we bring, in terms of our innovation, in fact, is that energy is what you require to move economies and scale economies. That's one value that we bring. And in terms of influence, like we say, Mijolnia really stands for the Black identity. It really wants to show that actually, as Black people, we can build, in fact, our systems and build our hardware, and so that in itself is what we want to do. We want to restore that balance, that idea that Black people too can thrive and deserve a place under the sun. And in terms of profitability and corporate social responsibility, we cannot exhaust those factors, in fact, because in terms of profit, when you're able to deliver such value to the society, it tends to really bring in certain financial benefits. And for us, really, in terms of those financial benefits, we intend to use it to leapfrog from developing or an underdeveloped society or country to a very developed one, in fact. So all of these finances, attracting foreign investors, attracting certain influences to come into the country and really see what we're doing. It's one of the things that we really think that our innovation can really drive. So for us, really, in terms of value, of influence, and profitability, we envisage that we will in fact tick the right boxes here.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, of course, sure, indeed. Promise. We always like to say, Tongston, whether you are a person, an organization, or a government, if you are not valuable, you are not influential, you are not profitable, you almost don't really matter compared to your competitors, and that's what really matters at the end of the day in everything that you do. You must make sure that you not only have that, but also the people or entities you serve should also. So yeah, indeed, Promise, you're right, actually. It's also something that is very much tied to, it's the reason why I asked this question, because it's tied to what the Tongston entrepreneurial thinking model is about, is that basically, whether you are a person, you are an organization, or you are a government, if you are not valuable, influential, and profitable, you will struggle to compete with other players within your space, actually. And even a step further, imagine if what you are doing helps your beneficiaries or the people you serve to be more valuable, influential, and profitable. That is something that I hope, not just for your enterprise, for Mijolnia, but also even going a step further, your consumers and the state and even the country and the continent as a whole becomes more valuable, influential, and profitable as a result of what you are doing or what you are serving us as a whole. So a question before the last one. Obviously, you know, many of the audiences that we serve or that we engage with, they are entrepreneurs, especially here in Nigeria and in Africa. So for you, what was the biggest lesson that you've learned building a startup in Nigeria?
Building a startup in Nigeria is, so one of the biggest lessons we've learned is, okay, so building a software is hard, you know, building, you know, building anything, in fact, from Nigeria is hard. Building software is harder, you know, and then when, of course, you're building hardware, it's one of the hardest things you want to, in fact, do. You know, you just get to have people say, oh, why not just do software and just, you know, at the end of the day, you just, you know, or you just go work for, you know, some company and just get paid and all of that. But the truth of the matter is the satisfaction derived from doing all of that is good, but it's not good enough in that sometimes you just want to serve people. You just, because of the empathy you have, it's just too much to see problems out there, and you know you have an idea or two about solving this, and you just let it pass and just let it slide. So sometimes it just gives you, sometimes it could in fact lead to depression. So for us, really, some of the things we've really picked out of building, you know, anything in Nigeria is that it's hard. It's really, really hard to really build. But in fact, we really hope that it would get better. I mean, there are you know, in fact, a lot of opportunities out there, you know, just like you rightly stated and pointed out. And it's just to connect the dots, in fact. So it's always good to be very, very hopeful. That it can't remain this way. It has to be very, I mean, I'm sure we really are getting closer to the climax, and the best is yet to come for entrepreneurs and for, you know, venture capitalists and for, you know, all of the other partners that are involved in changing this. So, but all in all, I can say for a fact that, you know, building in Nigeria is going to become more exciting. It's going to become more very, very engaging. And we've been able to unpack and learn a lot, in fact. But one of the things we learned is that entrepreneurs really need to, you know their onions and do their homework before getting into the main bowl. And really, for us, really, this is a learning process. We've been able to pick up, you know, a couple of things along the line. But one of the things we in fact, if I had the opportunity to speak to entrepreneurs, it's really to get to know your onions well before you even get to stand up in front of anybody. So much so that when you learn, when you're able to reach out to these people, you can at least, you know, see a thing or two that would be quite commendable.
Yeah, I agree. With problems come opportunity. You hear many other entrepreneurs, especially the ones that have made it around the world. They say that, and there's even a common saying. I don't know who coined it, that if you want to make $1 million, find $1 million problem to solve, basically.
Yeah.
And also in terms of really them learning on the journey, as you said, I really also want to, just in a subtle way, encourage you guys also to be documenting everything in your journey, because you never know, 10 years down the line, when you're chilling and successful and everything, some other young kid is trying to do something in tech, whether it's hardware or software or related to what you are doing in sustainable energy and all that. And the book that you publish someday, or a seminar that you conduct somewhere, or an interview that you are having somewhere, will be that thing that will actually make them move forward and inspire to be like, yeah, it's actually possible. Mr. Promise and Mr. Clinton and Mijolnia did it 10 years ago in Nigeria, the same Nigeria that people are saying, challenges, no light, this, that, you know. So I also, just to, in a subtle way, as I said, encourage you to document everything in your journey, all the lessons learned, and someday publish something. It can be a book, seminar, webinar. I don't know how it will be, in what form, but you know, you never know where it will go, you know, someday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So final question. I have to ask this one. I saved this one for the last. What next for Mijolnia in terms of further development? And also, where do you think, potentially, where could this idea go, in the next 1 year, 5 years, etc.?
What we're looking at doing right now, what we're quite focused on doing right now is really seeing how we could build and scale the products. In fact, so we have a consumer. We've been able to sort of like when the MacBook came out, Steve Jobs was able to really identify the consumers that could potentially. So there was a MacBook for the low end, and there was a MacBook for the professionals, which was high end, and of course you had the products were divided into two. We had the MacBook, and then we had the tabletop computers. So for us, really, we're developing for consumers, and then of course we're developing for big corporations, in fact. And so for us, really, where the idea could really go in the next 1 year is we hope to have done proper filing and completed our IP. And then of course we hope to have incorporated, and then we really will be working on trying to scale, the production, probably by engaging certain funding partners and all of that within the next couple of years. Having to launch a very, optimized website where people can reach us. And of course, within the next 1 year, we hope to actually work on our branding. And then how big can the idea really go? The idea really for Africa, the energy space is anywhere between $24 billion to $36 billion. More recently, the African Development Bank is investing about $12 billion. They are poised to actually invest up to about $70 billion in energy over the next few years, in fact, to boost energy. We've said this over and over again. Personally, this is a phrase that is actually we intend to trademark with Mijolnia, but in fact, it's not public knowledge that if you actually cover the whole of Lagos, in fact, with solar panels, Lagos is about 1,700 and I think 1,771 kilometers square. And when you cover all of that landmass with solar panels, you can in fact get up to 2,921 terawatt hours of energy. And that is enough to power all of Africa, because all of Africa's demand is 700 terawatts of energy. And you're talking about 2,900, which in fact you would have to sell to places like Southern America and places like the Middle East, that you can power all of the Middle East with that, in fact. So for us, really, the big vision is to become the power bank for not just Africa, but Southern America and of course the Middle East. This is how big the idea can go. It's $1 billion market, and we're confident, but of course we are really our heads are low, because we know a lot of giants can just prove that the idea is viable here, and a lot of big people can just book their resources here. And so we also hope to make some kind of connection with the Ministry of Mines, in fact, to start mining lithium and adding value to this lithium, because all of the battery systems we have currently being imported into Nigeria, and in fact Africa at large, is, I can say this for a fact because we've been there, we've done that for a long time now, is practically substandard. 6 out of 10 batteries are practically substandard. And we intend of course also to engage the Standards Organization of Nigeria, the international standard organizations in the world, the ISO, to sort of like look at ways we can improve on this production, because of course our manufacturing companies in Nigeria are not really looking at the ISO standards, the 9001 standardization processes. So these are some of the things that we tend to look at in the next coming years, 5 years or more down the line. And for us, we hope that it would in fact yield some kind of impact.
Yeah, indeed. I like that. I'm always in Tongston, whenever our team bring up ideas for us, I'm always like, if the idea is not ambitious enough, like it doesn't get my attention. So those are very big and ambitious ideas of yours. And as long as, what I would just say is, as long as Africa and Nigeria benefits first, that's what matters. I'm a bit biased towards the continent because there's need. So as much as you are trying to go to South America and other places, let's leave our people behind also. So I like the fact that Africa and Nigeria, the first market, and then of course the other parts of the world. So thank you very much again, Promise, for your time and for sharing your stories with Mijolnia and your team. Clinton is not here, but of course you are the one that led the pitch and is now letting the world know more about what you're doing. Any social media platforms, websites? How do people know more about what you're doing, your story, the project, and maybe if they want to further support you with grants or other investment, venture capital, etc., partnership, all that kind of thing? How best do they contact you and see what you're doing, basically?
Yeah. So we are Mijolnia on YouTube, or Mijolnia on Twitter, and of course Mijolnia on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Anybody can reach us on all of those platforms as well. Or my personal, LinkedIn profile is open. It's Promise C Okwuchukwu. So that's my personal profile. Or Clinton, is also at on LinkedIn. You can get him on LinkedIn. Emerana, Emerhane. That's Clinton Emer. So you can also reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's quite active. We're quite active on Twitter. We're quite active on LinkedIn, and of course, Mijolnia is on YouTube, and of course on Twitter as well. Yeah, and of course on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah,
so these are
one of the challenging things we found was how to spell Mijolnia. So if you can help with that also. I mean, the team is also going to put tags to your LinkedIn page and also to Mijolnia. But for the sake of the more audio people, if I can say that.
Yeah. So Mijolnia is spelled Mijolnie. Mijolnia. So the J in fact is silent. Yeah, it's a Nordish word. Yeah, so the J is silent.
Yes, exactly. Just like Thor, basically, as I learned 2 days ago. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Promise. And thank you for sharing your story and your journey and all that. And as I said, I've said this to you a few days ago during the advisory session. I'm looking forward to the next 6 months, 1 year, how it progresses. And I hope the public also do follow your story and see how you progress and in any way that they can support you. As I said, we need this more as Africa and as Nigeria. And let's see. I like seeing good things happen. It doesn't have to involve me in it, but the more we move forward, the better. I think the world is in a socio-economically challenged situation, and Africa must serve itself, And I really like where it's heading to so far. Challenges will come, obviously, but I think with all your experiences in the past in entrepreneurship, business, etc., even just the stress of studying in the university and etc., I'm sure you can withstand it and hopefully get the results that you're looking for. So thank you very much again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we see you again. Goodbye.
All right. Yeah, goodbye.
Okay, thank you.